Hey everyone, what's up? And welcome back to my channel. It's Josh. Okay, first things first. If you hear crackling or rumbling or anything in the background, that is thunder outside. It is storming today, and it's going to be storming all day. Sundays are kind of the only day that I can ever sit down and film a video, so we're just gonna power through. I stopped this once before to even to listen and see if you can hear it, and I think you can probably hear the big ones. So I apologize for that, but if I didn't film this, if I don't get through all of this today, it's not gonna happen for another few weeks. So anyway, jumping right in. So today we're gonna be looking at my brand new Casio Oceanus OCW S100-1AJF. This is obviously a JDM watch, if you know anything about Casios. And I have legit lusted after this watch for 2 years. I finally got it earlier this month, and I'm super happy with it. It's definitely not going to be a watch for everybody, but I think it's just a really phenomenal piece. So this is going to be sort of an in-depth review. A lot of you really seem to like the format that I did, or that I used with the SARX 055 Snowflake. Which, if you watch that video, basically what I did was I kind of introduced the watch to you all, and then I kind of pulled out three main points, or kind of three key points that I think anybody maybe looking at this watch should know, or anybody who's interested in this watch should know. And then for each of those three main points, I sort of did a pro and a con. So there was something that I liked about that standout feature, or whatever. And then there was something that I didn't like. And I really, on my channel, what I really want to do is give you all the most accurate, the most in-depth picture of what the watch is like to wear. I own these watches. I buy them with my own money. I'm a real person buying the watch just like you. So, everything that I have found, I want you to know as well. So Oceanus is Casio's higher end line for Japan. And you can probably tell by the packaging that this is not, your average Casio watch. But basically, Oceanus is a couple steps above something like Casio Edifice. So if you've ever seen, this is John's that I borrowed for this video, and you see the Edifice logo there. So if you've ever seen anything from Casio Edifice, that's sort of their higher end line for the United States market. But in other countries around the world, they get Oceanus. And Oceanus the line is very diverse. I think this is one of the older models now. Some people say it's discontinued. I don't believe that it's discontinued. I think they still make it, but it is definitely one of the lower end models. And I'll talk about why that's good, why I like that in just a bit. But the newer, Casio Oceanus, and I'll put, the beauty roll from Casio in here in the video. The newer line very much kind of takes that design language from Edifice, and to a certain extent, Seiko Astron, and really kind of creates these watches that go head to head with Seiko Astron. Which means, a lot of the newer ones are a lot more technical. They have, things like Bluetooth and GPS and all that kind of thing, which is not my thing, and I don't like that only because, Bluetooth is so outdated. Like, every time a new iPhone comes out, it's got a new, a newer standard of Bluetooth or whatever. So, to me, anytime you put Bluetooth in a watch, it's sort of, it means that it's definitely not a lifetime piece because it will be outdated rather quickly. So that's basically what Oceanus is. Now, this particular Oceanus, like we just said, uses the 5235 movement. And basically what that means, so tough movement, you can see that there. Basically what that means is that this watch has both the tough solar power system that Casio uses, in addition to Wave Scepter Multiband 6. Now, Wave Scepter and Multiband 6, as you can see here, are listed separately on the back. They are, to my understanding, the same thing. Wave Scepter means that this watch receives, radio signals from the atomic clocks around the world, and, will self-update basically every night. So that's Wave Scepter, and then Multiband 6 is sort of a newer standard of it where it can receive time signals from 6 of the satellites, or 6 of the radio stations around the world. So if we hit this, this is what they call the B button. There's a small little A button here, and then the B button here. And this crown, by the way, also is not like an actual crown. It's more of a kind of like a joy wheel or joystick kind of control. But you see the yes, the Y, and the N there? So if we hit the B button here, the second hand will rotate around to Y, and that means that yes, it did sync with the Fort Collins, Colorado signal last evening. And then here we go, it just goes back to ticking away. So that's sort of the yes and no. Also around the dial, you can see that we have R and W here between like around 2 o'clock. R is receiving, so if you force, like if for some reason, your auto update fails, you can force this guy to, receive a signal here. If you hold down this button there, it'll go to R, which is ready. Sorry, not receiving, ready. And then when it picks up the signal, it'll go to W. Now I'm going to cancel that because mine did update, as you can see there. So that's what R and W mean. Really, for me, I live in Texas. I think you might all know that. So Colorado is really not that far away, so I never have a problem syncing this watch. The one thing I will say, though, John and I are from Hawaii, and our families still live there. And the funny thing is, I bought my father for Christmas a G-Shock, basically identical to mine, except in black. Now, there is, for all of you, radio geeks out there, there is WWVH, which is another time channel, like another atomic clock, that's on the island of Kauai, which, is in the state of Hawaii. However, that one does not broadcast, I don't know if it's the government that locked it down, and, feel free to school me down in the comments. That one, watches can't pick that up. I don't know why. That one it doesn't, you can call into it, you can hear the signal over the phone, but you can't, none of the atomic clocks or anything can pick it up. So if you're in Hawaii or, really far away from any of the 6 atomic, the 6 radio stations that these types of watches can pick up, you may not get a signal. Okay, sorry, tangent. Down here you can see we have DST, and can you see that down here? DST, auto, and standard. So you can set, if you want to set it to automatically sync between daylight savings time or summertime. If you're in Europe, that's what it's called, summertime. Here in the United States, it's called daylight savings time. And you can kind of set it to do either standard time. So if you're in Arizona, for example, where you all don't do daylight savings time, then you can set it to only sync to standard time. And then if you pull out the crown here, you can see we are set to Chicago because I am in Central Time, and that is our sort of marker for where you are. If you switch this to Denver time, for example, Mountain Time, you see we jump back an hour. Let's go back to Honolulu. Where's Honolulu? There it is. You can see we're going to jump back. So the hand is moving clockwise, but it's jumping back to 3 a.m. this morning. And you can see that the date, has not changed. So that is how the kind of smart crown and all the different functions work. So let's just jump right into the 3 main points. The first point is that this watch is not going to be for everybody, but this is a highly advanced quartz watch. This watch is not just a quartz watch. It is basically an atomic clock. It receives signals from the radio stations around the world. So there's one here in the U.S., 2 in Japan, 1 in China, and one in Germany and 1 in the UK that you can receive time signals from. The benefit of that being that this is the most accurate quartz watch. This is the most accurate watch, period, that you will ever own, that anybody will ever own.
At the tone, 13 hours, 55 minutes, coordinated universal time.
So what I like about this is that I think this is a great travel watch. I think that it is so cool that it'll self-update and that it's always bang up to the second with, the atomic clock. This is definitely going to be the watch that I will set all my other watches by. Let's talk about the con to this being a quartz radio control watch. The biggest con here is that this watch is $558. Again, I'll leave it up to you all how you feel about spending $558 on it. But the con that that sort of came to mind if I'm, recommending this to somebody or, something like that, is that you can get the same, exactly the same functionality that you can get in this watch in a $100 G-Shock, like this guy here. So as you can see, we are exactly synced to the second between these two guys, because they're both receiving the same signals from the the atomic clocks. And this guy was $99. This is like $558. So, whether or not it's worth it to you to spend $558 on, to get the titanium case, to get the Oceanus name, to get this kind of design, totally up to you guys. I am not in the business of telling anybody how to spend their money on my channel. I'll just say for me, I love the design. I think that this is a much more, versatile piece. It's not, it's the kind of thing that you can wear anywhere and, you still got a really hardy, durable, super reliable Casio watch that looks a little bit more maybe like a Seiko or maybe a little bit more high end. You are paying a lot, I think, for what this watch is. But then again, those Seiko Astrons and the other Oceanus pieces are basically the same thing, and they sell for like $2,000. So if you look at it against that, like if you put this against like an Astron or something like that, then I guess you're getting a good deal. Okay, this is going really long, so I'm gonna try to speed it up here. My second kind of takeaway from wearing this watch for a couple weeks now is that this dial is just, I don't know, it's crazy. It's gorgeous. It is, it has so much personality, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So because we have like a solar cell underneath this face, if you know anything about solar watches, light has to be able to pass through kind of the dial here. Now what's really interesting about this watch is, as maybe you can see here, and I'll put footage in, I've been recording footage as I've been wearing the watch, in the video here. If you're not looking in direct light, this watch has a glossy face, and you can see that there with the reflection of the minute hand and the seconds hand. Like, it's not a shadow. You can actually see the reflection of those hands there. So in certain lighting conditions, this watch has a glossy face. Now let's move it under like really bright light, and you see here, it looks like it's got a matte face. And this is exactly how it looks kind of in sunlight, in daylight. Really, really interesting. Like, you don't see that, like the glossy effect that you do under, like dimmer lights, basically. Like, this looks like a matte face, doesn't it? And that is because of that solar cell that lives underneath the face of this watch. And you can kind of see this dial is segmented into like 6 pieces. So there's one line there, and then 2 more under these 2 hands. And that's part of the architecture of that solar cell that Casio puts into this watch. And then you can also see, again, like as we're looking at it here, I'm trying to adjust my filming light so that you all can see. Like, you see how the blue just kind of sparkles. So there's blue around each indice. You can really see that around 8 o'clock. And then there's that blue kind of accent ring around the face of the watch. There. Really gorgeous. Some people on like the watch forums and everything say that they think it looks cheap. Again, that's a very subjective opinion. I personally don't think it looks cheap. Like, I don't think it looks cheap like the blue accents on this watch kind of make it look cheap. To me, the blue accents on here really give it some life. Like, and the thing is, right, I'm not expecting this to look like a, $5,000 Rolex or something. Like, this watch, I love that it has personality because, it's a Casio at the end of the day. This is basically, I like to say that this is basically the nicest G-Shock you'll ever see, because that's basically what it is. But again, that could also be a con depending on how you look at this watch. If you, if you don't like that, if you like your watches to be super elegant and super classic and super timeless, this probably isn't going to be the watch for you. It definitely is kind of an acquired taste. Tough movement here. I also wish that wasn't on the face. Just sort of the overall, design of this watch, the way that it kind of incorporates its functions in its design is not going to be for everybody. But personally, I really like the way it looks. Okay, last point. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I think, this watch is entirely made of titanium. So the case, the bracelet, everything here is titanium. And you might be able to see this one a little bit more than that snowflake. That the bracelet is definitely a little bit more matte. If we compare it to something like stainless steel, this bracelet is definitely more like it's completely brushed, and the titanium is a little bit darker. It's a little bit more gray than like a platinum silver of stainless steel. But this is a really, really well done titanium case and bracelet. Super, super lightweight, really nicely machined. Like all of the case and the clasp and everything is very, very nicely done, I think. Especially for, given that this watch is only $500. Okay, the pro for titanium is that obviously it's super lightweight. And I think part of that was done because, again, this is sort of like the ultimate travel watch. And that's exactly how I view it personally. Like if we're doing, European travel, Asian travel, cross-country American travel or anything like that, this is probably the watch that I'm going to take because, again, it updates with the satellite. I can just set it to whatever time zone I'm in and not have to think about anything. It's never going to die. I'm not going to have to keep resetting it like an automatic watch, and I'm not going to have to worry about the battery dying like a regular quartz watch. Okay, the con to this being titanium is that it is incredibly lightweight. And I know that some of you, agreed with me when I said before that I think that some titanium watches feel cheap because they sort of start to take on a plasticky quality. This one absolutely does not take on that kind of plasticky quality. Everything here feels so solid. It definitely feels like a high-end Seiko. It definitely feels like a really quality watch. The bracelet drapes really, really nicely. You get solid end links, and these links, in addition to being, solid, they really do feel solid. Like you don't feel any of that kind of like hollow play that you sometimes do with like titanium watches or other kind of cheaper watches. This is easily half the weight of my Omega Seamaster. And again, whether or not that's your thing is totally up to you. I'm still on the fence about titanium. Like every time, if I wear this or if I wear my snowflake, it's not that it feels like a low quality piece, but there is something psychological about the heft of a stainless steel watch. Even something like, like this guy is stainless steel. This guy is heavy, but it still feels like a quality piece. It's sort of like, it just feels, stainless steel watches always just feel very solid, and they feel, it feels like you're paying for the quality and the heft of it. So a titanium watch is definitely just a mindset change. And I will be honest that I'm still definitely working through that personally. Now, the last thing I want to mention here, and again, this might be very subjective, while we're talking about titanium and the casing of this watch. Casio says that this has what they call, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but Salaz, Salaz polishing. Allegedly, the casings for these watches are made in the same factory in Japan as the Grand Seikos, the Casio Mr. G, and I'm going to guess some of the Presage line. And so, what some watch reviewers, both on the watch forums as well as here on YouTube, have alluded to is that this watch has exactly the same kind of clarity and quality and finish as a Grand Seiko. I am probably going to take some heat for this, but I do not agree. I don't think that this is... I would hope... Okay, here's what it is. This is a beautifully finished watch. I'm not trying to say that it's not, really, really well crafted. Everything is incredibly well machined. But I would hope that if I'm spending $5,000 on a Seiko, like a Grand Seiko, that I would get a little bit more polish and finesse and refinement than I get on this watch. This is my Seiko, the SARX 055 Snowflake. So just to kind of put these two up side by side. I really don't think that either of these, meets kind of like that Grand Seiko level of quality and finish. Again, I don't know. I've never handled, I've handled a Grand Seiko, but I've never had the time to kind of, really, really get into the details of it in terms of how it's made and how it's machined. Again, I don't know. I would just hope that I would get a higher quality finish with a Grand Seiko than either of these. And again, this is $500, this is $1,000, and those Grand Seiko pieces are, $5,000. So I'm just going to leave it there because I am not trying to talk smack about anybody's watches or anybody's quality or anything like that. So yeah, that's about it, guys. I hope that this has been helpful. I apologize that it did go long. I'm trying to keep my videos a little bit shorter because I know nobody wants to sit through 5 hours of talking watches with Josh or anything like that. So that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching another video. I'm going to turn off the camera and immediately start to film a Seiko video. So I may be putting out 2 in one day, and it'll be Christmas in April. Thanks so much again for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week, whatever it is when you're watching this, and take care.